Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It's Thursday, December 21st. So, what I thought I'd talk about today is basically, some of my failures in business. Because somebody had asked me a while back, could I kind of go into, you know, the process? Because, you know, I don't deem them as failures because I've learned from them, but the way that I made it better for me was if I do something and it doesn't work, then I know that either I have to change how I'm doing it or move on to something else. And early on, I used to, you know, try to buy and sell anything. And in my earliest years, I probably, and I still do it, okay? Buying and selling cattle. Now, when you're buying and selling cattle, the idea is you try to buy it as low as possible, pay as little as possible for the animal, and then sell that, you know, as a plus income. And I can remember when I first started out, I would go like to the local sale barn and I would buy, you know, cows that went cheap or young cattle that went cheap. And I wasn't experienced. I didn't know. I couldn't tell if one was a little sickly or not. And a lot of indications are just how they hold their ears, if their nose is warm, if they got, snot coming out, or if they got blind eye, which is pink eye, or if they have, a limp that you didn't notice. But at that point in time, I was trying to buy cheap and sell for a profit. And there were a lot of times. When I say a lot, it was probably 30-40%. I would buy and something would happen where they would get sick and die. Or I'd notice something that I'd have to send them back to the sale barn and I'd take a loss on them because, either they had a bad hip or, they had a cyst that I didn't notice. They had a tooth that was swelled up. Because a lot of times in the sale barn, it comes quick. They bring them into the ring and then kick them right back out. But I hooked up with this guy as a mentor. And I told him, I said, I wish I could buy like you. You seem to make good decisions. And he said, Eric, I was you once. And I was doing exactly the same thing you're doing with the same results. All I can tell you is it's like a college education. That the losses you take on those animals are giving you a good education of what to look for and what not to buy. So, that kind of caught me broadside. It's like, well, I thought I was doing pretty good, except for, he was doing a lot better. He had cattle all over the place out on time. And what he would do is he'd get people that wanted cattle. They couldn't afford to go out and buy them. He would go buy them. He would put them in their barn, and then they would pay him a monthly fee to have them in the barn. He had cattle all over the place. And it wasn't strictly just milking cows. He got into beef cows, But that struck me that I need to know more about what to look for and what to avoid. And what I started doing was I would when I see an animal come in, I would look up at him, and he'd either shake his head yes or no. And he was helping me out to identify what to stay away from and what not. And then after the sale, he would sit down with me and say, okay, the first one that came in, why did I say no? And I started learning, well, she had pink eye. She was blind in one eye, highly contagious. If you bring that into a herd of animals, good chances are you're going to be treating them all for pink eye. Okay. And what about the second one I weighed you off from? I said, well, her ears are back. She looked terrible, and all I could think of would be shipping fever. He said, you're spot on again. That education that you spent your money on the losses is teaching you correctly. Because you either have one or two choices. You either need to learn how to identify problem animals or get out. Because I couldn't keep going at the rate I was going, because eventually it would catch up to me where I wouldn't have any money left to invest, right? And that, that there alone was how I learned the most. It wasn't from college. It was from hands-on. And from approaching someone that I trusted and I looked up to as a mentor, and shut my mouth, open my ears, and learned. See, a lot of people don't know how to learn, They keep doing the same things, expecting different results, which Amos said is insanity, which it is. If I continued to buy the way I was buying, I would end up with no money and deem it like it was a total failure. Okay? But I had my own cattle trailer. Back then it was a 16-foot steel tandem axle, fifth wheel. And I could haul 6 cows. And I started buying out in the country versus the sale barn, because a lot of people ship their animals to the sale barn. Either one, they need money, or two, they're trying to get rid of their sick animals before they die. I mean, I'm just trying to be honest with you. So I started getting word out to everybody that I was a buyer. If you had beef cows you wanted to sell or Holsteins you wanted to sell, I paid cash, and probably was giving a little bit more than most people at that time that were buyers. Because there were some shysters in our business as well. There is shysters in every business known to man, right? There are people out there that will take advantage of other people, without even blinking an eye. What I tried to be was fair with people, And I mean, I made deals on, guys that wanted to sell 5 beef cows with calves, total of 10 animals, to buying a herd of 40 at a time. And what I learned along the way was the best way to become a cattle buyer was, one, have people lined up that are looking for those cows and calves, or whatever you're buying. Keep good notes and know the ones that could be cash customers with you that could buy from you, or whether it was something that you had to put out on time with interest where they made you a monthly payment. See, I always went with my cash customers first, because, and I think Amos could agree, and a lot of the guys could agree that are in business. I'll be honest with you, there's very few things in life that I have bought that I couldn't get my money out quickly if I had to. And that is, I'm buying at a wholesale level. So if I ever need that money, I can get out from underneath it in a hurry. Like farm equipment for our farm. The only thing I've ever bought new are disc mowers that we cut the hay with. But they hold their value as long as you take care of them, right? But all the rest of my equipment, my tractors, my balers, my rakes, all used, all bought at a price that I knew I could at least get myself out of it, right? And for a lot of people, that's like not buying a new truck, I wasn't going to buy a new truck 2 years ago. But as I mentioned before, as getting a family D plan rate for my son working in the dealership, having a lot of equity in the one that I had, put me into this one with still a lot more equity. So I can still get out from that truck today for more than what I've got in it. And that's the key. But I know on a lot of those deals that I've done, if the large group and I don't have room to hold them, I'll bring in other cattle buyers. Whereas I'll buy them, get them on the trailer, and let's say it was a group of 40. Of course, I don't want to carry 40 on my pastures. I've already got 57 out there. I would buy the 40 and then have friends of mine that were also in the cattle dealer business that had their own truck and trailers show up with me to load onto the trailers, because the trailer I have now is a aluminum tandem axle fifth wheel, and I can fit comfortably 8 mama cows with their calves on that trailer, but I can't fit 40, right? So I would hire these other cattle dealers to show up with their trailers so that we could get all 40 of them on in the same day. And a lot of times, the loads that went onto their trailers, they were already talking to me on the phone quietly saying, this is what I'll give you for them. And some of them I made $300-400 a head. Absolutely. How many you got on your trailer? Done. And these guys paid cash too. And I spread the wealth, across the board. And they would do the same thing in return. If they were out buying and a bigger herd than what they wanted to take on by themselves, I would be one of the first ones they would call and say, Eric, can you bring your cattle trailer over? At the very least, I'll pay you to truck them, but maybe we can work something out on whatever you get on your trailer. And a lot of times, whatever goes on my trailer, I owned. So, you got to work with the others too. But you have to also understand, with any business, you have to buy low and sell high, right? To make a profit. That's the goal of business. It's not to, buy and mark it up 5%. But yeah, I see so many people still trying to do it that way. Now, another example would be, that a year and a half ago I bought a John Deere 2180 with a loader, a set of plows, and tire chains, and I give $7,000 for it. Now, it was rated for 75 horse, I think it was, 75 or 80. And I brought it into the shop. We went through it, changed all the fluids. But I wanted to make sure it was 100%. And I bought it in the spring. And in the summer, we ran it through the paint bay and put new paint on it, new stickers on it. And I used it all that summer. Whether it was mowing hay, baling hay, hauling hay, it was a good solid tractor. But I found that I really didn't need another tractor, right? Again, if I'm going to buy something, I'm going to buy it at what I feel is wholesale level. In case I get into trouble, I need money, I got to get it out of it, right? So, with that tractor, I listed it for 15 and sold it for 12.5. So, you do the math. If you can do enough of those deals a year, that's all you need to do. That's how some of these guys do just that, is buying and selling used farm equipment. But you got to know what you're looking at, right? You got to know how things work and what to look for as far as, like, on a round baler. First thing I want to look at is the rollers, bearings, and belts. Then we'll look at the hay pickup, teeth. Is it missing a bunch of guards? Is it, how well did this person take care of it, you know? And then how much money am I going to have to put into it to get it back to where it needs to be with new paint and new decals on it? Because even my own stuff that I keep, I repaint probably once every 7-8 years just to keep it fresh with new decals looking nice. And my balers are over 25 years old, both of them. But they look brand new. But that's on the farm side. And that's how I turned my failings into a success, is really by learning my college education, as my mentor, which I got, had explained to me, you know, that you pay a tuition to go to college, right? This is your tuition that you're paying out when you're buying animals you should not be buying. And that's how you learn, is you get stuck and you have animals that die on you that you had money invested a week before. Now I can identify if one's got pink eye, one's got shipping fever, one's got hardware, which is metal in their gut. There's so many things that I look at that I don't even consciously think, you know, it's just, I already know. And guys will ask me at the sale barn, younger guys, looking to me as a mentor now, why did you not buy that one? It went so cheap. Well, it's sick. That's why. And I don't need to bring in a sick animal into my herd and get everybody else sick and take a chance on losing my whole herd for that one. So that's one of the ways that I'm giving back, you know, with the farm, is I'm mentoring other people that are younger that are getting into it. Because cattle buying is a dying breed. Most of the buyers that I know that are any good are still in their mid to late 70s, and some into their 80s. That's all they do year round is buy cattle and sell cattle. All right, so other failings with business. I remember trying to do, you know, building websites with Shopify and building catalogs from the Chinese stuff that would sell directly, you know, and how much money and potential was there, you know. And I did have a couple sales, but the biggest problem is if one of my customers bought off that website, I would send the address and what the items were over to China, and they would box it up and then send it back to the States. But what I found was they weren't in any hurry when it come to doing it that way. And you get a customer that's 2 months out and still hasn't got their product, they end up getting refunded, and then they get the product after the fact. So one of the things I learned with that was, if you're going to sell anything, you need to have the product in front of you so that you can ship it quickly and keep your customers happy. But I tried one with just fishing stuff, fishing poles, reels, lures, and then another one on pets with pet supplies and all the other stuff. And both of them were dismal failures for the same reason, is that one, you were one in a gazillion websites that you had to market to other people. And the lag time. If you did get an order, by the time they got the order, they got a refund because they filed a thing with their credit card saying that they never got the product. And, you'd end up, you couldn't show that they got the product because it hadn't been shipped yet, right? So I tried those, and that didn't work out. And then when I started, doing websites, when I got out of college, I developed an incorporated business and doing websites for mostly businesses, and that was working out pretty good. But then I noticed the trend of these overseas employees, overseas people that were willing to do exactly what I was doing for a fraction of the price, right? You just tell them what you want it to do, and they go do it, right? And even with Northern Europe Parts, with the online business, I had 4 overseas employees that were helping, whether it be on the server side or whether it be on just putting up listings, or one that did all the drop shipping, from the distributor right to my customer. But the biggest thing I noticed that in business is you can't become cocky. It's the worst thing. And with Northern Europe Parts and already selling on the venues, Amazon and eBay, and I knew I could build my own upload program, taking like a catalog from Briggs or Kohler, Stens, Rotary, what have you, and I could build the database and upload it with my margins, everything in place. And that was working out really well. But then again, I started getting kind of hit a little bit, even though I had like 10 days to ship is what I used to list. I figured 10 days I could get it ordered, get it in, and get it back out. Well, in the early days, since there weren't very many people doing that, and there weren't a lot of customers online at that point either. I mean, you had people that had little experience, but I soon found out that I needed the product at my location so that I could get the metrics up for shipping, because Amazon and eBay will let you know that those customers that are buying from you are not your customers. It's their customers. And you better keep their customers happy. I'm telling you right now, in their eyes, the customers are far more important to them than you are as a seller. And Amazon got real cocky. To the point of, we cut our listings like a third, down to a third. Because Amazon kept wanting more and more and more, because they were coming out with their Prime and all these other programs that they had in-house. I mean, I started out with Amazon when it was simply just a college bookstore. And you could list your books, and somebody would buy it. They would send you a check. You box up the book and send it to them. That's how Amazon started, all right? But, you know, they got into other things. They started looking around, and they saw eBay was doing pretty good as far as having sellers come in and sell their wares. But they were also looking on the e-commerce side of how well Walmart was starting to do and Sears were starting to do online. So they started buying their own products and shipping their own products to customers more and more. See, that was a nice thing with eBay early on. eBay never competed directly against you. They could put the screws to you, but they didn't compete directly against you. Amazon would. Well, we were doing fairly well. And when I say fairly well, I mean, I think it was like my third year. We're on track for 700,000 in sales. And I already run into a couple of them of where you send them a brand new PTO clutch and they send back your old, you know. And in the early days, what we would do is we would put a buyer's mark or a seller's mark on anything that went out the door. And at that time, we were using, it was only visible under ultraviolet light. So you put a mark somewhere that signified what was yours and what wasn't yours. And, you know, you had to figure that in. You know, I always figured it in as theft, because it was theft. They kept my clutch and they sent me back their junk clutch, all right? Theft. But the biggest one I can remember was, and this wasn't that uncommon, we had sold, Sten's had a valve grinding group of tools in a box, and it was like $300 or $400 for it. And I had a customer in Singapore that bought it, couldn't get his credit card to go through, I guess, trying to do PayPal. And at that time, you know, that wasn't uncommon, that wasn't unheard of. So a lot of times the customer would call you and give you the credit card number over the phone, expiration date, and then the CV code that's on the back, right? So this fella got a hold of me, said he still wanted the kit, gave me the credit card numbers, ran it through our machine, come back as accepted, you know, good. So I sent him the kit. And about a week later, he called me and he said, we'd like to buy 20 of those kits. That we have a school down here and we're teaching kids how to, you know, do valves on engines, clearances, and all that. And I had no reason to mistrust him, right? But it came to just under $8,000. And he said, can you put, you know, like 45 on this card and then 35 on my wife's card, and then the school's going to reimburse us. So I went ahead and I did that, and both cards cleared. We boxed it up and we sent it. The thing that I had put on it was paid for was signature. I figured going, you know, I think it was FedEx or maybe USPS. But it ended up there was no proof of delivery. It showed delivered, but there was no signature by the buyer that matched signature and this and that. And about 2 weeks later, I get a thing from my credit card processing thing that they've flagged those two purchases as fraud. And that somebody had got a hold of this couple's cards and bought all this stuff when wasn't the real owner. And I knew that they were lying. They knew that I had no signature on that. So they went ahead and just filed, fraud. And I ended up losing $8,000 on that deal. So I'm going to start wrapping it up here. But as long as you can take a failing of something you've done and figured out a way around it so that it will work for you, then it's a plus, right? And as my cattle mentor said, you're going to have some losses, and those losses are your college tuition of learning the right way to do it. And I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of people that if they had taken that $8,000 hit, they would have just folded up. Or if they would have bought so many sick cows and went backwards on them, they would have given up. See, that's the difference of ones that succeed at business and ones that fail. The ones that fail give up, all right? They never learn. The ones that succeed take their experience, the wisdom, and keep growing and remembering what you did wrong and know what you did right, and then just start doing more of what you did right. That's the key. So any of you guys out there that are, just starting out or, you're just getting into business, you're going to take some losses. You're going to fail at some of the things that you try to do. But the key there is not that you're going to fail on them, because we all go through it. It's that you need to get experience to get wisdom, and wisdom to start showing that this is how you make money instead of lose money. Because in business, if you're not making money, you can't keep the doors open. So on that note, you guys have a great Thursday, and we'll see you back here tomorrow morning bright and early, and you guys have a great day.